welcome to Breakthrough with Champs. I'm Natsuyo Lipschutz, and I have Mario Lewis here, and he's the District 46 champion of this year, and
Yes.
you're going to 2017 World Championship of Public Speaking semi-final in Vancouver.
Yes.
Congratulations.
Thank you very much.
And this is not your first time going to the World.
This is
right?
my second time.
Right.
I mean, 5 years ago, in 2012, I represented District 46 in the international
Yep.
contest, where I was lucky enough, I should say fortunate enough to win the semi-final contest, where I made it to the final, I think 9 in the world at that time.
Wow.
Now the contest has expanded to 10,
Yeah.
and hopefully we can have
Hopefully it's going to happen again, right?
keep my fingers crossed.
Yeah, I mean, does it feel different this time?
It feels very different this
Yeah.
time. 5 years ago, I still considered myself a Toastmaster newbie.
Right.
I didn't know what to expect.
Right.
And I went, and I
What's
think
the
I'm much more
contest?
exactly.
What's the world stage, right?
And I learned a lot at that time, and now I've learned enough that I think I have a decent chance this time of making an impact.
Right,
So-
great.
So
Yeah, as far as I know, you've been competing pretty much every year, not just international, but also humorous speech contests in fall too.
Yes.
That's twice a year. That's a lot.
Yes,
You're competing
it is.
all year round.
yes.
What's the motivation here?
Actually, last year I competed in the humorous as a preparation for the international.
Oh, okay.
So now I've only focused on the international contest, but it takes a lot of work, as you know.
Oh yeah.
So-
It's a 6-month process, and at every stage you have to improve and improve and improve.
Absolutely.
It's never ending, right?
But what I did, the only year I actually took off was in 2013, because my 2012 experience was so amazing, but it was
Right.
so draining.
Right,
that it took
right.
me a year to actually recover from that experience.
Yeah. But you came back.
It's one of those things when you're on the stage and you are speaking, you're inspiring, you're engaging, encouraging. You miss it after a while. And
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
it's just the
It's like
opportunity.
actors, maybe.
It is.
You know, right?
They never give up. They
Right.
always want to find the next good role.
Yeah.
And I think as speakers,
Both ways, right? Like you're giving inspiring messages to the audience, but the audience responses give energy back to you.
absolutely. So that's what makes it so you miss it so much when you're out
Right.
of it. Because this is a great platform to share ideas, communicate, and
Right.
hopefully really touch people.
Right.
So, and that was my
And-
motivation this year.
And your speeches have been touching a lot of people.
Thank you, Greg.
Yeah.
Likewise.
Thank you. So you're competing every year, and you have to find new topics.
Absolutely.
How do you find new topics, and how do you prepare for the speech contest?
Actually, there are two things I did. I remember when I first joined Toastmasters, I was always the person who came in third or second, and one year I was just so disappointed after. Not that I was disappointed, but I wanted to see what.
Right.
So I went home and I said, what could be the one thing I could talk about that would just touch people? And I have 2 young daughters, and I thought to myself, what could I possibly say to them that would be a universal message that they could grow up with? So I found that you have to find topics that really touch people.
Right.
So, and the second thing I did was a few years ago, I let the audience choose what I speak about. So I wrote 3 speeches, and I shared it with all of my clubmates and friends, and they helped me to select the topic I should talk about.
okay.
So, and the topic that I used this year was one of those 3.
Oh,
The speech I
okay.
used last year was one
Right.
of those 3. So,
Oh, I
so,
see.
And what's interesting, because I did this a few years ago, I kept on writing and updating. So most of these messages I've just been refining over the last couple of years. 'Cause I believe a really good speech really takes over a year to write.
Yeah. I'm totally with you. I started preparing for this year's contest I started writing in October, but I started thinking about it exactly a year ago.
Exactly.
Yeah, so it's a year-long process, or even longer. It's probably like thinking deeper into yourself. It's a self-discovery process, isn't it?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. All my good speeches have been something that I felt internally that took me a while to think about it. I did a little bit of research around the topic. Like this year's speech was called Check Engine Lights, and that has to do a little bit about an experience I had with my car. Right. And I did actually research on how many other people have the same type of problem.
Oh, wow.
How did they resolve it? What are the typical causes for a check engine light to go off?
Oh, wow.
So I did the technical aspect of the story,
right.
But I also was able to link it to my own personal stories, which I found to be a better way to write.
So you did some web research?
Absolutely.
Oh.
Even in this first speech that I went in 2012, where it talks about personal insecurities,
right.
I did a lot of research on how other people, how they respond to their insecurities in order to put together that message.
Right.
So I think a really good speech has the emotional parts about it, but it's also technically sound and technically correct.
Yeah, absolutely. But it's still, difficult to keep finding the resonating message every single year, right? Yeah. And I think what amazes me about your speeches every year is that it's not a dramatic story. It's, some people think that when you give a speech, it has to be some dramatic thing or, something extraordinary, like TED Talk, right? But you find an ordinary story, something extraordinary about an ordinary story.
Absolutely.
And how do you turn the everyday life into an inspiring story or speech?
I believe that the best speeches tell complex emotions in very simple ways. So if you think about all the speeches I've ever done, they speak to very complex, heartfelt emotions, but they take very simple stories to explain it. So last year's speech was called Listen. It talked about my inability to listen or pay attention or listen to, and I used my story with my wife as an example. It was just a simple catamaran ride in Dominican Republic. So I told that story, and then I linked it to my inability to listen and the lessons that catamaran taught me about listening, and also about being a better husband.
Right. I think it's a universal message, right?
Yes, absolutely.
Husbands have to listen to your wives.
Point taken. Yeah.
Right.
I'm still learning. So
I know.
I think every story you should tell often speaks to complex emotions, and that's what brings people in. But when you can tell in a very simple way, just an everyday, relatable way, that's where the connection happens.
Right. And I think the simplicity is the most difficult thing to achieve.
Absolutely.
And, whether it's, I always talk about, I'm Japanese, I talk about sushi, how simple it is. It's just fish and rice. But the rice is in perfection, and the fish is cut and selected in perfection, and two of them put together, it's a masterpiece.
Absolutely.
It's just like that. It's such a simple thing, like simple tomato sauce, can be so complex and rich in flavor, and that's so difficult to achieve. And I think there's a certain process you must follow to achieve that. Do you have a process you can share?
That's where the audience engagement comes in.
I see.
So I write down the story in broad detail and then try to myself to simplify it. Then I go to the audience, and I have a very specific evaluation form that I give out when I'm in practice form. Just asking simple questions. Was the message clear to you? Was there any point where you were confused about any part of the message? Was there any point where you were distracted or your attention wavered? Once I get to those core things, it allows me to go each part of the speech and then craft it and just use words that are really clear. One of the things that I learned in 2012 is that because when you go to international level, you're speaking to an international audience. You should try to speak at a third or fourth grade reading level, because the average person, you don't want to say a complex word that the next person, the audience is wondering, what does that mean? And they're debating.
Right. And then their minds will be off to somewhere.
Exactly. So
their value might be different, so your message may be taken a little differently.
Absolutely.
Unless it's very simple and clear.
So my goal, especially over the last few months with the speech I'm working with, is just ultimately to make it more simple and more clear. Because I've seen so many really good speeches not make the measure because they have too many big words and they're just losing the audience at different points. So.
Right. And to me, I'm a non-native English speaker, so I don't know too many complex words. So that's an advantage for me.
Absolutely.
I can put together simple words, and that's all I can do. So I'm telling my fellow, non-native speakers that being a non-native speaker is actually an advantage.
It is truly an amazing advantage because I'm originally from Jamaica, so I consider myself international. But if you look at the trends in this Toastmaster speaking, the last 3 champions have been international speakers.
Yep.
They use very complex words. They match it to an American audience or an international audience.
Right.
And one of the great things about having even a slight accent is that people will lean in closer just to make sure they grab all of your message.
And your accent can become a charm.
Oh, it is.
Yeah.
It totally is.
Yeah.
So I wish I had more of an international Jamaican accent, but
You can put it on.
I can bring it back when I need to.
Maybe you want to try that.
Absolutely.
But it takes a lot of time and effort preparing for the speech contest, and you have a full-time job. And what do you do again?
I work with the Federal Reserve as a bank examiner, and I supervise a team of financial analysts.
Right. And how is speaking helping your job, or is it helping your job?
Oh, I think it's a critical part of my job because I'm communicating in front of the firm that I supervise and in front of the senior management here. And I often go to vettings and a lot of meetings where people call upon me to present. And I've developed a really good relationship with the management at the Fed because I help with a lot of their Fed challenge where they bring in schools, they teach skills to young kids. So I do a lot of programs internally in helping our Toastmaster group as well as developing programs for the school, for the organization.
Okay.
So public speaking has given me a bigger platform within the walls of the Federal Reserve.
Oh, okay. Sometimes I hear people saying that, well, I don't have to really speak or present in my job. Speaking is for top level management or, blah, blah, blah. And for those people, if you are to give 2 to 3 benefits of public speaking, what would that be?
I believe that speaking is a critical function because it's about communication and it's a meaningful part of building relationships. If you're not communicating well, you're not building relationships with the people that matter within your job or even within your family. Secondly, I just think it's just a critical way for us to, enhance your career. And it's one of those things that's kind of hard to imagine not being on a platform where I'm trying to improve it.
Right.
Because it gives you a voice. I know what it felt like to be younger when I was nervous and shy. And I'm a completely different person because of the ability to communicate. So I've taken this quote from somebody that I don't get ready to speak, I stay ready to speak. And that has made meaningful impact on my career.
Yeah, as Craig Valentine says.
Absolutely.
Yeah, don't get ready, stay ready.
Absolutely.
Right. Yeah, well, great. Well, thank you so much, and congratulations again, and good luck in Vancouver.
So much. Thank you.
Thanks for watching, and it was Natsuyo Lipschutz, and we'll see you again.
Appreciate it. Have a great day.